We've talked a lot about the fact that we have 3 freezers here on the property. This one, we got that first year since moving here. We were able to pick it up for free. As you can tell, it's in pretty rough shape, but it still functions. The seal is definitely broken, so the only thing that we've been keeping in this freezer are some of those bones from both the moose and the cow. So today's plan is to grab a bag of bones and turn it into some broth. I don't think we're going to get around to doing all of these bones today. It's going to take a few batches, and we only have 2 pots to really make into the broth, but we're at least going to do a pretty good dent on this, so it'll be at least something. I think we're going to start with some moose bones today. I think that'll be enough for today's batch. We really wanted to keep some of these with the intention of making a bone soup, and we haven't done that yet. So I think this is also going to be the perfect time to try to make some bone soup. I might cut this up one more time though, so it fits a little bit nicer in our pans, because I mean, we just don't have pans that are ginormous around here. So I think we'll cut this once and then throw it in a pot and make some stew with some bone soup. That's such a big bone. So looking at these again, these ones were already cut off at a joint, but these ones were not. And I think we can probably fit these ones in our stock pot. This definitely needs to get cut in half though. So I'm going to leave this as is, cut these in half, and then since I have to cut these in half anyway, we'll take one of them and chuck it in our stew pot then. Gives me 2 less cuts that I have to do. Not bad. Well, we changed our mind very quickly. After looking at the bone marrow on the inside, this is really what we want for our soup. So I think I'm going to make another cut on all of them and just kind of cut off the knuckle part so that we can have this section to go in our soup and then the rest of this can go in the broth. So I thought I was saving cuts, but it turns out I just doubled the amount of cuts I have to make, but that's okay. Oh yeah. That way, this big knuckle goes in the soup, and this one goes in the pot. Hi! Now we've got really nice 4 bones full of marrow for our soup today. Got those 4 knuckles in the pot. It doesn't quite fill it up halfway. I think we're closer to between 1/3 and half. Now, 2 more pieces. And that should be good. And then we've got 6 of these center pieces of the bone that we're going to add into our soup for today. So like I said, we just have to add water to this now, but we do have a second big pot. It's actually a little bit bigger than this one, and I think we're going to get the last bit of the beef bones going as well, along with this moose. It's pretty long and tall, but if that doesn't fit...
Cut it in half.
Oh, I am so strong. Look at that. There, the spine fits. pelvis. And then this one also. Should we just go cut these two? Okay. We'll cut those two. And then we'll be done cutting. We are just going to let both of these pots simmer on the stove on low. We don't want it to be too hot, and we're just going to leave them all day long. We feel pretty strongly about the fact that, yes, there's always ways to do something better, to make it taste yummier, to be more extravagant in your processes, but also it's just very acceptable to do it very simple, very basic as well. And most of those other ingredients that you're adding at this point that's always being recommended to us, we're always adding those in the second step of the process when we're actually using that broth. And also this way, by keeping it super simple right off the bat, we can use that broth for a bunch of other things as well. Ooh, don't touch that. We took these bones out of the oven and let them cool down for a while. They are definitely ready to go. A lot of that marrow has already kind of started seeping out of the bones, so we are going to take all of this and put it in our Dutch oven for our soup now. That's stuck a little bit. Woo! I should have loosened them first. That is like, I got it. There you go. Alright. Now both of my hands are greasy. That's okay. Can't really stir it because of the bones. But... Well, this broth cooked down all day yesterday. We turned it off very late last night, and it's been slowly cooling down for this morning, and we are going to start straining it and getting it into some jars. My plan is to can this up in a few different sizes. I want to do both quarts and pints, but we are going to start with the moose broth in quarts. It's been a busy week so far, and I'm a little bit behind on dishes today, so we are going to use a half pint to scoop it out, but that's okay. Once these get in the canner, I can get caught up again. We do only have one working pressure canner right now. We have a second one, but we were able to pick that up kind of broken, so we need to get some new seals on it and make sure that the gauge is working before we can actually use it. So we just have one, and since I'm doing quarts, I can fit 8 of them in per batch, so I'm going to get 8 jars filled up right now, and then I'll just leave the rest of this in the pot until we get around to doing the next batch. Today is just going to kind of be a more relaxed, slow, finish cleaning up the kitchen and just kind of slowly put along on getting all of this canned. So we usually season our things when we're actually making them, so we don't typically put a lot of stuff in the initial product. However, I am going to add about a half teaspoon of some salt to each of these jars. Just a little bit. So this first one looks like it has a pretty good amount of fat, so I'm just going to get a spoon and just kind of scoop it out into a different container. I don't mind there being a little bit of fat in each of these jars, but I don't think I want almost an inch worth. All right, that's a lot better. I thought it was 8, but it is only 7 fit in this canner, which is totally fine because we're starting to run a lot lower than I expected, and I want to get some just regular pints also canned up. So we've got 7 quarts of the moose broth, and we are going to get this one going. It's a dangerous game I'm playing right now. Oh, I don't want them all to just fall forward. Onto the beef. We have a few jars of, like, quart jars of beef broth already, so I want to start with the pints for these ones because I do think that we don't always just use broth for soups and stuff. We'll use it for bases, for doing like a cream of something sauce, either a cream of mushroom, if we want to make mac and cheese, the green bean casserole, things like that. So I do think that those pints, I want a lot more of the pint jars, so that is the goal, to get most of those out of this broth first. This beef definitely has a lot more fat on it though, so I'm going to focus on this first bit, just trying to get as much of that fat strained off as I can. We've been given the suggestion to let it sit outside or in the fridge to cool down so that fat kind of hardens up again, but that takes more time that we don't necessarily want to do, so I think we are just going to do it this way instead. Huh?
So it's a good idea though.
It is. Yeah, it's a really good idea. Just at this current moment where we're trying to cruise through this really quickly, I think straining it will be a little bit faster. You can kind of see that layer between the fat and the broth. There's not a lot of broth in this. It is mostly fat. And I dumped it out again. That's the second time I've done that today. So I gotta restrain it. I will say broths and like fatty things are one of my least favorite things to deal with, shortly followed by oily stuff. It's just not fun, and I feel like it takes forever to get it all cleaned up. So this is mostly fat. We're going to just set this off to the side. So again, this first jar that we're pouring off is going to have most of that fat that's still settled on top. So I'm just going to spoon this off back into that jar, and then the rest of them shouldn't be too bad. So I definitely expected that we would be able to tell the difference between the moose and the beef, but I kind of thought it was going to be reversed, which one's which. Initially, I thought that this moose ended up being a lot lighter in color than I thought it was going to be, but the beef seems to be even lighter in color. So again, we didn't add anything to this broth, so there's no onion skins or carrots or anything that's actually going to be darkening that color. This is just purely the bones that are doing this coloring. The moose is a lot cloudier than the beef is. The beef is pretty clear. I think it looks really nice. Yeah, I just think it's kind of fascinating just to kind of see the differences each time around, what they end up looking like, and kind of just seeing how they all turn out. But we have quite a few more. We have to finish that giant pot of the beef and probably do at least 2 more canner loads in the pressure canner. So we got to get to work. Well, after 3 loads to the pressure canner, we ended up with 36 jars of broth for today.